Welcome to the live. We'll let people join. Hopefully everyone's having a... Oh, I should have titled it Taco Tuesday. What was I thinking? Oh, well. Hopefully everyone's having a great week, and I hope you had a great President's Day. I really do. That's a bit much. Rose and bergamot. It's a bit much. Hello, how are you? We're just waiting on people to join. I just started. Hopefully you're having a good Tuesday. The last time I did a live around this time, we had a lot of trolls, so hopefully we won't have as many. But I have a feeling every time I say that. Every time I say that, it's like the joke ends up being on me. So, there's that. Hello, how are you? Haha. Hello, how are you? Okay, cool. We got a few joining. I'm doing great. How are you doing? Hi, TWC. Myers, I'm just giving people a few seconds to get notified and join in. It's crazy. I'm here. What am I angry for? I'm not angry. Am I coming across as angry? I hope not. Hello, how are you? I hope I don't seem angry. I'm not today. Today's a good day. I'm angry sometimes. Let's see. Yeah, we actually had, I'm in Virginia. I'm sure you've seen some of the images out of southwestern Virginia, the Appalachia area. They got a lot of flooding. We also had a lot of storms here. We didn't necessarily have the flooding though, which is good for us, but not everyone in this state was so lucky. I'm saying that though because we're supposed to, later on this week, we're gonna have storms again. I'm like, really? We just got through all of our storms, but today, it's nice out today. It's not supposed to be as nice. Tomorrow we're getting more snow, so there's that. Anyway, let's go in. I am in Albuquerque. Oh, you have snow. Where are you with your snow? You're not the Albuquerque person. Okay, let's just play this news clip really quick. This is Stephen Miller. If you've watched any of Stephen Miller, he is probably my favorite person in this administration. I just have the most fun watching him during interviews. And okay, so we're going to talk a lot about Doge. There's a lot of stuff happening with that, and a lot of stuff happening with RFK Jr. We're going to go into some of his speeches, what he's talking about. It should be a fun live. Okay, so this is Stephen Miller. My prediction is that the media is actually going to hate Stephen Miller even more than they hate Donald Trump. This guy is awesome. He knows, like, Stephen Miller, in my opinion, is just a masterclass on how to deal with the media in such a brilliant way. And he just takes them all to school. So this is Stephen Miller on CNN. What exactly is his position? Let me see what his position is within the cabinet. Stephen Miller, Trump. What is his position? know he's definitely an advisor. Okay, I don't know. He's some kind of secretary advisor. Anyway, he's high up within the Trump administration. And he's been on TV a lot. So they're talking about Doge and basically saving the Americans money.
For you and for CNN.
So this is Stephen Miller on CNN. And if you don't know who he is, you'll see very quickly why he is my favorite. I love him.
Chief of Staff for Policy. Stephen, thank you so much for taking time for us. So who is in charge of Doge?
The President of the United States.
He's the administrator of Doge?
No, the Doge is what was formerly U.S. Digital Services. It's an agency of the federal government that reports into the Executive Office of the President, which reports to the President of the United States.
Okay.
The way that Article 2 works is the President wins an election, and then he appoints staff, including myself, including Mike Waltz, including Susie Wiles, including Elon Musk, and those staff report to him.
Okay, well aware. So Elon Musk a week ago answered a question about transparency at Doge. This is how he spoke about Doge.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent.
You hear him there. We post our actions. All of our actions are maximally transparent. Does Elon Musk know he's not in charge of Doge?
Again, the president runs the government, then the president appoints advisors, including Elon, including myself, including all the other staff here at the White House, and then those staff in turn...
It is so funny, like, you'll see this all the time. They get so upset when people go and look at what they're doing. Meanwhile, they have no issue auditing regular Americans constantly.
Execute the president's commands and directions to all the agencies of the federal government. This is how democracy works, something that we treasure in America. The whole American people go to the ballot box, they elect the president appoints staff, the staff that administer his orders and directives across the whole U.S. government.
Okay, Stephen, I get that, but this is important because we want to talk about who's making the decisions here. There were 300 employees at the National Nuclear Security Administration. You know about this. They were fired. The agency had to rescind those terminations because these were employees who were critical to maintaining the nation's nuclear stockpile. So then who is it making those decisions of which federal employees are terminated?
Well, in that case, the Secretary of Energy would be the one. So what you're describing with the cuts in the Department of Energy, those are directed by the Senate-confirmed Secretary of Energy.
Okay, so that was the Secretary of Energy's mistake.
Well, I wouldn't use the term mistake. I would say that it's pretty standard when you're downsizing government. You make cuts, you assess those cuts, you see who needs to be rehired, who needs to be kept, who needs to be
That's not what happened here, though, Stephen. You know that. They were rescinded. These aren't normal things. These were terminations that were rescinded.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see is a government that is finally delivering a promise of accountability under President Trump. You want to have a conversation about transparency? Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with the B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone. Transparency begins with having an accounting of where every federal dollar is spent. And God bless President Trump for leading this effort.
Stephen, it seems like the crisis here had to do with the nation's nuclear stockpile. And for these particular federal workers, which I'm not, so this isn't...
It's gotta really suck to be CNN right now. I just can't even imagine just how much it sucks to be them. That just sucks. You're so not the cool guy.
My personal crisis. Military members of the Guard
I don't
and the
think
Reserve.
it's a crisis, and
well,
you don't think it's
well,
hold on. I don't think it's a crisis,
Stephen,
and you don't think it's a crisis. Then why are we talking about it?
Military.
So that is Stephen Miller, and that's why I think that he is going to be a lot more hated by President Trump, or by the media, than even President Trump. She keeps saying, I get that. She obviously doesn't get it at all. And a lot of them don't get it, and they don't realize what this looks like to the average American. And by the way, during the Biden administration, that's when they hired the 87,000 IRS agents. And there was actually an article, I can't remember what the publication was, but the article was just about how giddy Democrats were, because now with these extra 87,000 IRS agents, they're going to be able to audit more Americans, squeezing even more money. They were bragging about all the money, all the extra money they were going to be able to squeeze out of Americans by these IRS agents that they hired. Meanwhile, we're discovering all this exorbitant waste that they had. They just discovered with the Treasury $4.7 trillion in payments that went out that we have no idea where they went. It's unaccounted for because there is a tracking code that they are supposed to put on these payments, or actually no, they're not even supposed to, that we found out is optional to put on these payments. So there's no tracking code. We can't track where the payments are going. And if you consider the amount of checks that they sent out, think just back in 2020 when they sent out all of those stimulus checks, and think about all the tax checks that they sent out. It's just funny how when it's going after regular Americans and people and squeezing money out of them, they have no issue where that money goes, or they have no issue who's being audited. But now when it's them, they have big issue with being audited. I find that very funny. Okay, now let's go to, so this is RFK Jr. And he is pledging that nothing will be off limits for him. So let's listen to what he says. He just got confirmed as our health secretary.
Were formally taboo. Last Thursday, President Trump signed an executive order to establish the Maha Commission to study what has caused the precipitous decline in American health over the past 2 generations. So we will convene representatives of all viewpoints to study the causes for the drastic rise in chronic disease. Some of the possible factors we will investigate were formally taboo or insufficiently scrutinized. The childhood vaccine schedule, electromagnetic radiation, glyphosate, other pesticides, ultra-processed foods, artificial food additives, SSRI and other psychiatric drugs, PFAs, PFOAs, microplastics. Nothing is going to be off limits. Whatever belief or suspicion I have expressed in the past, I'm willing to subject them all to the scrutiny of unbiased science. That is going to be our template, unbiased science. That's something that will make us all proud of this agency and of our role in restoring American health. Let's commission research that will satisfy all the stakeholders once and for all. Let's use protocols that we all agree on in advance and not alter the outcomes of studies when they're halfway through and that they look inconvenient. Let's all depoliticize these issues and reestablish a common ground for action and renew the search for existential truth with no political impediments and no preconceptions. Finally, I want to ask you to think about...
And the thing is, I've been looking at the conversations for a few years now. Everybody is upset about our food system. This is something that goes across all party lines. Nobody is okay with it. Libertarian, Democrat, Republican, even far leftists, everyone is suspicious of Big Pharma and what's in our food, and everyone wants these things investigated. Everyone wants certain chemicals banned, we're seeing that we have chemicals that are banned in the EU that are still available here. You look at lists of ingredients of food items, I'm sure you've seen these videos where you'll see the same boxed food item that's sold in the US is sold in the EU, and the ingredients are like half the size that they are in the US. So this is something that everyone is on board with, and I love this. Yeah, food colors. What was it? The red dye. Was it red dye number 40 or red dye number 3? Yeah, the FDA certifies synthetic color additives and regulates their use with the FDA's recent order on red dye number 3. Manufacturers have until January 2027 to remove the dye from their products. And what's crazy is that it was actually removed from makeup products a long time ago. Red dye number 3 banned from makeup. Red dye number 3 was banned from cosmetics in 1990. So it was banned from things that go on top of your skin before it was banned on the food that you ingest into your body. Let's see what this is.
And Elon Musk and others have been relate one of them to something you just said. You lived in Germany.
That's what's so funny. Like, everyone is for wanting to know what's in our food, cleaning up the food system, cleaning up big pharma, and everyone is for cleaning up the government waste. It's only the radical leftists or the Democrats in power and the rhinos and probably the paid, all of the paid protesters that are against it. Those are the only people that are against it.
For half your life. Yeah. Relate one of them to something you just said. You lived in Germany for half your life. Yeah. And there is a big debate going on about the politics in Germany right now. You're also Jewish. And there is support, and you've even seen it over the weekend. Marco Rubio and Elon Musk and others have been very supportive of the alt-right movement in
the
Germany.
Brainwashed, yeah.
While there's been questions about their association with some supporting Nazis and other things. I'm curious where you land on that.
Well, I don't want to go into the technical weeds here, but the problem in Germany.
Oh, I had to remove this guy. He got one of my lives restricted. He kept saying
is that somehow the small portion of Germans that believe you cannot talk about migration without being a bigot, which is about probably 15%, 90% of them vote for the Green parties, have somehow tricked the larger parties into saying they will only vote for things if the far right doesn't vote with them, which basically, as a matter of pragmatic power, shifts all immigration policy to a small group of people that literally will not let you discuss the fact that Afghani immigrants to Germany.
Oh, hold on. This is actually, hold on. Let's listen to this again. That's actually really interesting. It doesn't mean any bigot. Well, the funny thing is, if you look at the actual definition of bigot here, it's so funny because they are the actual definition of bigot. This is what really cracks me up. Okay, let's look at the Webster's definition. Okay, a bigot is a person who is unreasonably okay, so a bigot is a person who is unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against or antagonistic toward a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. So the ones that are screaming that everyone is a bigot, they themselves are literally the definition of bigots. It's so funny. It's hilarious. Unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against, all Trump supporters are white supreme sandwiches. Like, you could argue the Tom Hanks sketch of a Trump supporter that was bigoted. Because that was a stereotype of what they conceived Trump supporters to be. Tom's. It's really embarrassing for Democrats because there's no reason why SNL should suck. The pool of talent that they have to pull from, there's no reason why they should be that bad, but they continue to be that bad. Do I want America to be more white? No, and that's a weird question. I don't know, like, what does that even mean? No, I want American to have, like, good values and a good culture. That's what's really funny, too, and I'm not saying you're from the left at all. I obviously don't know you or where that comment came from or your intention behind that. But it's really funny because that's a good example to use, though. It's the left who's obsessed with race. Like, they're the ones that are completely obsessed with identity and race, and here we are talking about values and culture and principle and personal responsibility, which has nothing to do with race, everything to do with culture and values. That's why it's so funny when they say that people that are against illegal immigration, they're like, oh, because you want America to be more white. Oh, you don't like brown people. I'm like, you do realize there are Mexican Americans that are against illegal immigration. You do realize there are Venezuelan Americans. There are Americans from all over the world that are against illegal immigration, and they're also Trump supporters. So what you just did is you exposed your own ignorance and your own bigotry and your own prejudice by even uttering that statement. That's what you're actually doing. That statement says more about you and your lack of understanding of half of the country. Half of the country voted for Donald Trump. Yeah, come here the right way. Come here legally. That's the issue. The only differentiating thing is legal versus illegal. And by the way, there are people coming from Russia, coming from Ukraine, coming from other places that are not Latin America, that are not Mexico. So there's people coming from all over. Again, that just highlights the lack of understanding about the reality of who comes over our border, who claims asylum, and who Trump supporters are. Yeah, Europeans did come here legally. They came through Ellis Island, which technically is a port of entry. All their names are on the books. They had health screenings. They had to prove that they had a sponsor. They had to prove that they had a job prospect, and they also had to prove that they would not be a burden to already existing Americans. And back in the day of Ellis Island, when you had the majority of Europeans coming here, they also didn't have the welfare state. The welfare state didn't exist, I think, until the 1960s. So that didn't exist. And this is one of the biggest problems with our open borders. Actually, not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is crime. Obviously, public safety is number one. But one of the biggest problems with our open borders is that we do have a social security system and a safety net. We are a welfare state. But we're able to maintain that welfare state because the people that live here and that benefit off that are also the people that have been working and paying into the system. You have people that are brand new to the system coming in and now are benefiting off the taxpayer dime. And yes, this does happen. I have countless instances of this happening. In fact, I have right here, let me see if I can pull it up for you. Hopefully I didn't erase it. All right, here you go. This is Sheriff Grady Judd out of Florida. He just did a bust, a trafficking bust. This was a few months ago. And listen to him talk about one of the people that he caught. This is why people are against the league, because you can't, it was Thomas Sowell who said, you can't have open borders in a welfare state. You can't have both. It's not sustainable. It's just fiscally not sustainable. Listen to Judd, Grady Judd, out of Florida, Polk County, Florida, just a few months ago.
First, I want you to see this chart. 25 illegal immigrants were arrested in this operation. They were from Venezuela, Cuba, Colombia, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico. 16% of these total arrests were people who should not even have been in this country, but they were here. And they were here because we have a federal government that enabled these criminals to come into the country and then treated them very well after the criminals came here illegally. So let me share a story with you, and then I'm going to read a quote for you and then let you see a video. The prostitutes that came here, several of them had to pay off a coyote debt. Some of them said, hey, we did it because it was easy money. Others said, well, we came here and we were illegal and we couldn't get employment, so we turned to prostitution. Some of them said we were threatened and our family was threatened if we did not prostitute for the coyotes or for the human traffickers. So I'm going to tell you one story about one of our suspects, Maria, and that's not her real name. She's from Venezuela. She made a conscious decision to come to this country to commit crime. She flew into Mexico from Venezuela. She walked across from Juarez, Mexico, into El Paso, Texas, with her one-year-old child, where she was greeted by the Border Patrol. Did you hear what I said? She was greeted by the Border Patrol. There was no sneaking. She flew in, she got here, she simply walked across the open border. There is no border security at the southern border. Zero. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this woman, she came here with the sole intention of committing crime, and even she was shocked by how easy it was to get over the border, and you're going to hear all of the services that she was offered right when she got over.
So when she was greeted, and you'll understand why we use that term in a minute, you'll understand that she went to the Border Patrol processing, where in one day she completed the processing and was released to a facility, a holding facility, a housing facility for immigrants. She said, I was given a DNA test to make sure that my DNA matched my child's.
At least she was given a DNA test. Do we even still do that anymore? That's one thing. At least she was given that.
He was given a DEA test to make sure he was really my child. She said once that occurred, they set me down and they told me all about the benefits that I would get in the United States. She said I was eligible and I had to fill out these forms so that I could get those benefits. She said, so I fill forms out for Medicaid, for SNAP, which is money for food. She said I was given free travel from the border to...
And now you know why they're auditing SNAP and all those agencies. Now you know why, because of stuff like this. This is fraudulent. This is why they're auditing those things.
Chicago. When I got to Chicago, I couldn't find gainful employment there, so I thought, what the heck? I'll go to Florida. And then I got to fly to Florida. She was giving free housing. All because the United States paid for that. That's right, you, the taxpayers, got to pay for that. So this was all simply walking across the border. She said it was unbelievable to me. But let me read her quote. Because understand, she walked across the border. This was not a stealthful act. And then they gave her free travel, free housing, free food, free medical care. All why people from the hurricane are still waiting for help.
Yeah, this also happened. This was all during hurricane time when people were still suffering from the hurricane and being denied services.
Read in English, and then we're going to play the video clip she agreed to do if we'd use another name. When I passed through immigration, they sat me down and explained to me all the benefits I was eligible for. I was told I could apply for government assistance. I could apply for health medical insurance for my son, and I could apply for food assistance. After I finished talking to immigration, a short time passed until a DNA test was done on me and my son to prove that he was my son. Then,
here's the problem. You know, I do think that I'm okay with having a refugee system or an immigration system where we do help people that need help, but it is so open. There are so many loopholes, and our immigration system gets completely taken advantage of. And you have people, and the problem is too, with our catch and release, this is one of the things that Donald Trump wanted to get rid of. And, okay, little voicemail. Calm down. Okay. This is one of the... because I was talking. I know I saw it. I'm not going to be in South Memphis anytime soon. I was talking. Oh, but this is the problem with catch and release, because most of the people that come over our border, they don't have legitimate asylum claims. So they're not going to actually qualify for asylum. But when you have catch and release, they're able to be in the United States for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It's gotten that long because Joe Biden opened up the floodgates that much. They're here waiting all that time, and guess what? They're on government bennies. So they're collecting benefits, and they might not even have a legitimate asylum claim. So they could be in the country for years collecting benefits, and then finally their court case gets called up, and the judge is like, sorry, you don't qualify for asylum, and we've already paid them. It's not right. The system, and that's why Donald Trump ended catch and release and wanted remain in Mexico, because right away, you end that, right away, that takes away, I would say 70%, 80, 90% of the incentive for people that don't actually qualify for asylum to come and claim.
Then they set me down with other people who were also waiting and had already qualified to be released. Then they explained to us that the documents we had in our hands were our personal identification in the United States, and we could use the documents to travel on buses and airplanes.
And this is one of the parts that's so infuriating too. So within our country, they can get free plane tickets as well. So they don't have proper US ID. they can, and they don't have money to pay for plane tickets, but tax dollars will pay for their plane tickets. In this woman's case, and in a lot of cases that you'll see, she went to one city, didn't work out for her there, so she decided to fly to another city. What American gets to do that? Do you know how expensive it is for an American to move anywhere, even to move across town? It's expensive. But we are paying for their plane tickets. So let's say they go to Chicago. That's where they wanted to go. They come over the border illegally. They get transported to Chicago. They get to Chicago. They're in Chicago a few months. They don't really like it. It's not working out. So they go to whatever office and they're like, I want to try New York City. So us taxpayers will pay for their plane ticket for them to go to Chicago to New York City. And the cities are incentivized to do this because they're so overloaded with all of these illegal immigrants. They don't know what to do. So they're like, yeah, we'll just, it's easy. It works out better for them to just say, we'll pay for your plane ticket to leave. So we're not burdened for your shelter and food for the next however many months. And in New York City, you can literally go to some of these offices and you'll see signs that say, we will pay for your ticket, your one-way ticket, wherever you want to go. So now you have these migrants who are these illegal immigrants who are coming over the border, just bouncing around our country. Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. American citizens can't do that. It's almost an American dream for someone. I know people that have never, American citizens that have grown up here, that have never been on a plane in their whole lives.
Also explained to us that we can use those documents to apply for our documents to become legal here. And after that, they explained all of the benefits. They said, "Welcome to the United States of North America." And from there, they transported us to a refugee camp. And all of this occurred in one day. So welcome to the United States. This is someone who just crossed the border illegally and to commit crime. And they were not only welcome to the United States, but then they were giving all kinds of benefits at the cost of the taxpayer. So let's listen to her in her words.
Here she is.
And then we'll
I will say she did change her name, but I do have an ounce of respect for her for at least coming and talking about that. And she went on camera. He basically said everything that she said, so I didn't record much of this, but
move on from there to other topics.
This is her. Yeah, that was her. But she was basically saying, like, even she was surprised. She was like, I had no idea it was going to be that easy. I thought it was going to be harder to just come over the border. And now all of a sudden, I get all these taxpayer benefits. No sane country would do this. This is not sane. I don't care whether you're a Democrat, Republican, this is not sane. And it's not sustainable. It's just not. 1 + 1 = 2. I'm from Georgia. I grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. Wow. Okay. So crime in Venezuela went down 72% last year. I wonder why. And it's really funny because is it the president in Venezuela? He didn't want, although he's not recognized. Yeah, so the illegitimate president of Venezuela, Maduro, he originally said that he wasn't going to be accepting any of those planes, any of those deportation flights from the United States. He didn't want them. Richard Grenell went down there, met with him for what seemed like 1 hour. I don't know how long he was down there. And then all of a sudden, Maduro was like, yes, we will take the flights. Or wait. But even still, yeah, so of course they don't want them back. If their crime went down and they got rid of the problems, of course they're not going to want them back. But that just feeds into the argument that they're not sending their best. If it was really the best of the best, the people that are really going to contribute to our country and make our country a better place, don't you think the presidents and prime ministers or whatever it is of these countries would be just completely eager to take them back? But they're not. In many of these instances, they're not. Oh, we got word from Poland. Poland says our president is amazing. Oh wait, should we listen? Wasn't JD Vance, was that where he was? Was he in Poland? Wait, who was in Poland? I want to listen to the whole JD Vance speech. That wasn't Poland, that's not where he was. Should we listen to it?
The gathered delegates and luminaries and media.
I don't know why Poland remind me of this, but this is Munich, Germany. So here's Chuck L on Twitter. Let's listen to it. I think this will be fun. Honestly, one of the best speeches, and right in the face of the gathered Euro authoritarian elite by JD Vance. Simply amazing, a must-watch in full context. You owe it to yourself to take 18 minutes to watch. Okay, shall we do it together? Let's do it together. Can I show it to you? Here, I think I can show it to you. I'm sorry we're doing just, you know, really like not technologically advanced things over here, but I'm not on my, I do StreamYards a lot for my live streams. I didn't do it. I'm on my phone right now because I'm a little bit in the country. So if I'm on my computer, it's a little bit slower. That's why my live streams are like this, but I'm sorry. But I think this will be worth it. I think this
Thanks to all the gathered delegates and luminaries and media professionals, and thanks especially to the hosts of the Munich Security Conference for being able to put on such an incredible event. We're, of course, thrilled to be here. We're happy to be here. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is, of course, our shared values. And, you know, it's great to be back in Germany. As you heard earlier, I was here last year as United States Senator. I saw Foreign Secretary David Lammy, and joked that both of us last year had different jobs than we have now. But now it's time for all of our countries, for all of us who have been fortunate enough to be given political power by our respective peoples, to use it wisely to improve their lives. And I want to say that, you know, I was fortunate in my time here to spend some time outside the walls of this conference over the last 24 hours. And I've been so impressed by the hospitality of the people, even as, of course, as they're reeling from yesterday's horrendous attack. And the first time I was ever in Munich was with my wife, actually, who's here with me today, on a personal trip. And I've always loved the city of Munich, and I've always loved its people. And I just want to say that we're very moved, and our thoughts and prayers are with Munich and everybody affected by the evil inflicted on this beautiful community. We're thinking about you, we're praying for you, and we will certainly be rooting for you in the days and weeks to come. Now,
I will say, I think he's going to be the next president as well. Ow. That was my mic stand and just, that was the funny bone. No, I think JD Vance is being groomed to be the next president. That's what I think.
I hope that's not the last bit of applause that I get, but we gather at this conference, of course, to discuss security, and normally we mean threats to our external security. I see many great military leaders gathered here today. But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values shared with the United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense.
What's the elephant in the room? Okay, someone in the chat just said, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? You can't just say that. What's the elephant? I don't know what it is. Continue.
Of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk.
I don't believe all of anyone's bullshit, just so you know.
Talk about democratic values, we must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that canceled elections. Were they the good guys?
What is the elephant? You just said that 2 times now. What's the elephant? I don't know what it is. Jeez.
Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of the extraordinary blessings of liberty. The freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, to build.
Oh,
As it turns out, you can't mandate innovation or creativity, just as you can't.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, well, thank you for, I didn't mean to force you to say that again. Stop it, please. Just stop it. Stop.
Force people what to think, what to feel, or what to believe, and we believe those things are certainly connected. And unfortunately,
Because I like it. It's a good speech. What do you mean, how am I not falling asleep?
when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshair.
I do have mods. They're just, I haven't been going live a lot recently, and when I go live on my phone like this, I get a lot of people that aren't used to my channel, so I get a lot of trolls. I'm sorry, you guys.
A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. After British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke.
Yeah, there were a few people that were locked up for prayer. That is wild. To me, you have every right to do that. What about the people that block the roads? Like, they're actually putting people's safety at risk. People's physically safety at risk. When you're blocking a road, you're putting your physical safety at risk, and you're putting the driver's physical safety at risk. So it's wild to me that you can arrest someone for praying in public, but you're not going to arrest the protesters for blocking intersections and busy highways. It's wild.
Fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes.
It's supposed to be illegal. Someone said, I thought blocking roads was illegal. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be illegal, but they don't prosecute, which is frustrating. And that's why stuff like this is angering. Okay, so you're going to prosecute people praying in front of abortion clinics, but you're not going to prosecute the people that are blocking highways?
May amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizen suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And in the interest of comedy, my friends, but also in the interest of truth, I will admit that sometimes the loudest voices for censorship have come not from within Europe, but from within my own country, where the prior administration threatened and bullied social media companies to censor so-called misinformation. Misinformation like, for example, the idea that coronavirus had likely leaked from a laboratory in China. Our own government encouraged private companies to silence people who dared to utter what turned out to be an obvious truth. So I come here today not just with an observation, but with an offer. And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree. Now, we're at the point, of course, that the situation has gotten so bad that this December, Romania straight up canceled the results of a presidential election based on the flimsy suspicions of an intelligence agency and enormous pressure from its continental neighbors. Now, as I understand it, the argument was that Russian disinformation had infected the Romanian elections. But I'd ask my European friends to have some perspective. You can believe it's wrong for Russia to buy social media advertisements to influence your elections. We certainly do. You can condemn it on the world stage even. But if your democracy can be destroyed with a few $100,000 of digital advertising from a foreign country, then it wasn't very strong to begin with. Now, the good news is that I happen to think your democracies are substantially less brittle than many people apparently fear. And I really do believe that allowing our citizens to speak their mind will make them stronger still. Which, of course, brings us back to Munich, where the organizers of this very conference have banned lawmakers representing populist parties on both the left and the right from participating in these conversations. Now, again, we don't have to agree with everything or anything that people say. But when political leaders represent an important constituency, it is incumbent upon us to at least participate in dialogue with them. Now, to many of us on the other side of the Atlantic, it looks more and more like old entrenched interests hiding behind ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation, who simply don't like the idea that somebody with an alternative viewpoint might express a different opinion or, God forbid, vote a different way or, even worse, win an election. Now, this is a security conference, and I'm sure you all came here prepared to talk about how exactly you intend to increase defense spending over the next few years in line with some new target. And that's great, because as President Trump has made abundantly clear, he believes that our European friends must play a bigger role in the future of this continent. We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger. But let me also ask you, how will you even begin to think through the kinds of budgeting questions if we don't know what it is that we are defending in the first place? I've heard a lot already in my conversations, and I've had many, many great conversations with many people gathered here in this room. I've heard a lot about what you need to defend yourselves from, and of course that's important. But what has seemed a little bit less clear to me, and certainly I think to many of the citizens of Europe, is what exactly it is that you're defending yourselves for. What is the positive vision that animates this shared security compact that we all believe is so important? And I believe deeply that there is no security if you are afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people. Europe faces many challenges, but the crisis this continent faces right now, the crisis I believe we all face together, is one of our own making. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump. You need democratic mandates to accomplish anything of value in the coming years. Have we learned nothing that thin mandates produce unstable results? But there is so much of value that can be accomplished with the kind of democratic mandate that I think will come from being more responsive to the voices of your citizens. If you're going to enjoy competitive economies, if you're going to enjoy affordable energy and secure supply chains, then you need mandates to govern, because you have to make difficult choices to enjoy all of these things. And of course, we know that very well in America. You cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail, whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news. Nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society. And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration. Today, almost...
This is where, in my opinion, it gets really good. The mass migration issue has just been rocking all of Europe. And this is one of the main things the globalists wanted for Western civilization, all of Western civilization. So the fact that he is calling them out to their faces right now is so cool. So this is when it gets really, really good.
1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course, it's gotten much higher since.
Yeah.
And we know this situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across
Draco, that's a really good quote. Everyone look at what Draco said. That's really good.
the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they did vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting for political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children. And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in the great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, "Do not be afraid." We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership. Thank you all. Good luck to all of you. God bless you.
That was a good speech.
Well, thank you. And
I can't believe we
thanks
just
to all
listened to that whole
the
thing.
gathered delegates and
That was 18
luminaries and
minutes.
media professionals. And thanks especially.
That was 18 minutes long. We just listened to that whole thing. That was a really good speech, and he did that in the EU in Munich, Germany, in front of all those globalists. And that's one of their biggest weapons is the mass migration. So the fact that he called that out, that was one of my favorite parts of the whole speech, that he called that out right in front of their faces. I saw that Germany is now arresting people for insults. That is insane. Yeah, it's not a good look for them. It's just not. It's really just not. That's how they want to roll. Hey, that's how Germany wants to roll. Go ahead and roll, Germany. Roll your little hearts out.
Virginia Democrats say they care about you.
I mean, it's just clear that we don't have any room for tax cuts.
Like they're out-of-touch allies in Washington.
Are you guys aware of any drainage issues in that area that turned that field?
All right, we'll watch this together.
Well, I can tell you there's no recent construction that's been going on that turns that field into a lake. It's historically been a problem, and we're looking at ways we may be able to mitigate that, but we can't speak to solutions at this point.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this on. We're actually waiting on President Trump is going to be signing executive orders again, so I'll stay live with you guys throughout that. That's what we're waiting on. They're doing a press conference in Clarkson, Tennessee right now. I know they had at least 11 people that passed away in Clarkson, Tennessee due to the flooding.
So that helps a lot. But for folks, before prep your car, have a kit, so extra blanket, gloves.
We'll stay and watch Trump sign those executive
Stand,
orders.
something in case you lose
Hopefully
traction,
he comes on soon.
traction and shovel. Those small little preparations make a big difference, and just give yourself more time. So if you have to get out and about, and we encourage folks, if you don't have to, stay home. But if you do have to get out and about, certainly, like I'll be out and about, so I don't want to be. There are things that will make you need to be out and about. So if you have to, just give yourself more time, give yourself lots of stopping distance, and then get these road
battery
credits.
recharge. We're in an intermission. You can, if you need to get a snack, you need to go to the bathroom, get a snack. This is intermission. Nothing's going on right now. Oh, Trump's here. Wait, is Trump here? No, he's not here yet. Okay, calm down. Sorry.
As people get
right.
ready for that snowstorm. All right, everyone, live look right now at inside of Mar-a-Lago. We are awaiting Trump remarks as well as the president signing some executive orders. As soon as that happens, we will.
Can
bring
you
that
wish
to you
Jamie
here on
Martin a
Live Now
happy
from Fox.
birthday?
No commercial breaks.
Wait, can I wish Jamie Martin a happy birthday? Jamie Martin. I had no idea. I actually feel so bad. I woke up this morning and had no idea. I completely forgot that it was National Jamie Martin Day. So, Jamie Martin, happy birthday. I hope you have the best day, and excuse me for not realizing it was National Your Day. It's National Jamie Martin Day. So happy birthday, Jamie Martin. I hope you have a wonderful day and do some super fun things. And now someone wants to deport Kamala Harris. This is Jamie's birthday. Calm down, Harvey. It's Jamie's birthday. It's National Jamie Day. You're welcome. Alright, I'm trying to figure out when Trump is going to be online. Okay, we're still. Oh, Stephen Miller. I'm sorry, I thought I logged Stephen Miller off. Stephen Miller is getting questioned. He's my favorite.
A number of this administration's initiatives are now.
I'll tell you what they're asking.
Probably in taking office, you knew that would happen. I wonder if you regard that the volume of litigation to which this administration is being subjected is larger than usual, and if you can address for us how the lawyers at OMB, at OPM, or at the counsel's office are dealing with this extraordinary volume.
Well, I mean, if you give me an opportunity to salute their work, I certainly will take it, which will say that AG Bondi has assembled an incredible team who've done a great job arguing these cases. You're right that there has been an onslaught of litigation, and my word, not yours. And lawfare is a significant problem in this country. And it's certainly our view as an administration that it is untenable for individual district court judges to try to assert control over the functioning of the entire executive branch. This is not found anywhere in the Constitution. It's inconsistent with any notion of democracy, and it's inconsistent with the notion that we're a country that settles big policy disputes by holding national elections. And so we're going to vigorously protect the prerogative of the President of the United States to change federal policy, and in most of these cases, the most important issue is, and to assert control over the federal bureaucracy. And I believe the central issue here is whether or not major policy decisions are made by a president or they're made by career unelected lifetime bureaucrats.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
After illegal immigration, are you looking to reform legal immigration?
Well, I don't want to make any announcements on that today, but during the campaign, the president was clear about his support for merit-based immigration reform.
That was Stephen Miller just moments ago outside of the White House. We do want to go now live to Mar-a-Lago. President Trump coming to the podium.
Okay, here's Trump at Mar-a-Lago right now.
People from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. They're here to take photographs, and it's my honor to do so. Also, the fire department, the great firefighters. So they're here throughout the room, and I want to thank you very much for being here. I'll be with you in a little while. We'll do some great photos. We have plenty of time. Policemen, police women, and firemen, firewomen. They're here, and we appreciate it very much. You've done a fantastic job. I think it's very important to state that incredible things are happening in our country. I think we've made more progress in 3 weeks than they've made in 4 years, especially with respect to the reputation of our country. And people are respecting us again as a country and as a powerful country, and maybe a smart country, but maybe not so smart, because when you look at some of the waste, fraud, and abuse that's being uncovered by Doge and the people at Doge. These are young, often young, but super brilliant people, incredible computer scientists and other things. And they're finding levels of fraud and waste and abuse like I think nobody ever thought possible. But before we do that, I just want to ask Will to come over. I've just finished signing some executive orders, and if we could start with that, Will, you might want to come up here and just explain what we did. Thank you.
Good afternoon, y'all. A short while ago, President Trump signed three items The first is an executive order relating to the affordability and availability of in vitro fertilization and other fertility treatments. These are treatments that have become unaffordable for many Americans, or have been unaffordable for many Americans. And the executive order is a directive to the Domestic Policy Council to examine ways to make IVF and other fertility treatments more affordable for more Americans. The second item that we signed was a presidential memorandum imposing radical transparency requirements on government departments and agencies, in keeping with President Trump and the administration's broader commitment to governmental transparency. What this presidential memorandum would do is require, as waste, fraud, and abuse is uncovered, as programs are canceled, and ultimately as taxpayer dollars are saved, this presidential memorandum would require departments and agencies to make all of the details of that freely available to the public. Lastly, we have another executive order that President Trump signed relating to independent agencies. This executive order would establish important oversight functions in the Office of Management and Budget and its subsidiary office, OIRA, supervising independent agencies and many of their actions, and also reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the President or the Attorney General can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
Thank you very much, Will. That was the primary purpose of this conference, to explain that they're all very important in their own way. Fertilization, I'm saying that we're going to do what we have to do, and I think the women and families, husbands, are very appreciative of it. But that was it. I do want to say, while I'm up here, I've been contacted by some of the biggest companies in the world, and because of what we're doing economically and through tariffs and taxes and incentives, they want to come back into the United States. And we'll be announcing various very large companies, the biggest actually, and they'll be coming back, having to do with chips and having to do also with cars and lots of other things. We're going to be announcing some very, very big, momentous decisions are being made by companies all around the world, the biggest, and they want to come back into the U.S. Car plants are being canceled in other locations now because they want to build them here. And you read about a couple, not that I want to mention names or anything, but you read about a couple of big ones in Mexico just got canceled because they're going to be building them in the United States. And that's very simply because of what we're doing with respect to taxes, tariffs, and incentives. And I think it's a very important thing. And you'll be seeing this over the next probably over the next 2 years, to be honest, but you're going to see a lot of it over the next couple of weeks. A lot of big ones are going to be announcing. And so while we're here, I guess we can take a couple of quick questions. Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Have you decided specifically what the auto tariff rate should be?
Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
Wow.
Semiconductors and pharmaceuticals?
It'll be 25% and higher, and it'll go very substantially higher over a course of a year. But we want to give them time to come in because, as you know, when they come into the United States and they have their plant or factory here, there is no tariff. So we want to give them a little bit of a chance. Yes, thank you.
The EU, Andrea Shalom, the EU representative is going to be here in Washington tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with Hassett and Greer and Letnick. What can the EU do to sort of avoid the reciprocal tariffs that you've talked about? And, you know, you've talked a lot about the VAT. Do you expect them to reduce that?
Well, they did already, as I understand it, reduce their car tariff all the way down to what we have. And a lot of that will take place, and I think some won't do it and some will do it. But the EU had a 10% tax on cars, and now they have a 2.5% tax, which is the exact same as us. So already we've saved a tremendous amount. That would be great. If everybody would do that, then we'd all be on the same playing field. Because essentially what we're doing with the tariffs is, you know, they charge us, we charge them, same amount. And it's called reciprocal, actually. And whatever they charge us, we're charging them. And so the EU is, I appreciate that they did this, but, the EU has been very unfair to us. We have a deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They don't take almost anything. They take very little. And
I feel like we just get used by everyone.
we're going to have to straighten that out, and we will. I have no doubt about it. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Russia talks, your impression of how they went today, and if you're perhaps more confident or less confident of a deal after what happened today?
Well, much more confident. They were very good. Russia wants to do something. They want to stop the savage barbarianism. I mean, what's going on over there? It's soldiers are being killed by the thousands on a weekly basis. It's ridiculous. And they're not American soldiers. They're Russian soldiers, and they're Ukrainian soldiers largely, although a lot of Koreans have been killed, as you know. Quite a bit of them have been killed. They came over to fight, and a large portion have been wiped out. But we want to end it. It's a senseless war. It should have never happened. Would have never happened if I was president. And it's a shame to see it. And I see pictures that you don't see, but I see pictures of fields that look just horrible. Like Gettysburg, if you see the old pictures of Gettysburg, it's soldiers lying all over the field, body parts all over the field. They're all dead. And this is going on a daily basis. It's a horrible thing. Both Russia and Ukraine, they're losing thousands and thousands of soldiers, and a lot of people have been killed too. I think that's one of the things that you'll see historically, and you'll see later on as it goes along. I think people are going to be surprised at how many people, not only soldiers, have been killed in Ukraine. A lot more people than you think. Yeah, please.
President Trump, as peace deal with Putin, would you be willing to consider removing all American troops from Europe?
Well, nobody's asked me to do that, so I don't think we'd have to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. But that question's never really come up. Yeah. Please.
Sir, do you support stationing European peacekeeping troops in Ukraine as part of this peace deal?
If they want to do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine. I mean, I know France has mentioned it. Others have mentioned it. UK has mentioned it. But, if we have a peace deal, I think having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all. We're talking about this now, peace. We have either a ceasefire or a peace itself, and we're looking to do both. We'd start off with the ceasefire, and if they want to do that, I know France was willing to do that, and I thought that was a beautiful gesture. Yeah, please.
Do you have any message for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president. And I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. They could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides. You have those magnificent golden domes that are shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful, you can't replace that. A whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago? You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration. Putin would have never, ever done it. And by the way, we wouldn't have had October 7th. You know that. We wouldn't have had October 7th either in Israel. And we wouldn't have had that mess that's going on over there. It's like we have great fire people here. We're putting out fires all over the world. We're putting out fires. So that wouldn't have happened. And you know what else wouldn't have happened? Inflation. Because it was caused really by the cost of energy going through the roof because of their bad energy policies and also their spending, their terrible spending, wasteful spending on the Green New Scam. It's a scam. It's a whole big scam. Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you a little closer to home.
This is what I miss. I'm sorry, I'm going to play it again. This is what I miss about President Trump, the fact that he is just so transparent and would have these conferences every single day. This is what people don't report on. He would do these things every single day.
What would it take for you to reconsider the restrictions on the Associated Press? And secondly, some of your advisors are concerned with the Associated Press's style guide, using language and giving guidance to not use words like illegal immigrant or to use phrases like gender affirming care. And they're concerned about that being an encroaching of liberalism in the way in which the press writes about things. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I do think that some of the phrases that they want to use are ridiculous, and I think, frankly, they've become obsolete, especially in the last 3 weeks, because many things have happened in the last 3 weeks, and I didn't know about that, but I would say that if they want to use certain phrases like that, and I guess some are okay, but many aren't, but the Associated Press just refuses to go with what the law is and what is taking place. It's called the Gulf of America now. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even challenging that. But only the essentially, it's primarily the Associated Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be the Gulf of America. Now, the Associated Press, as you know, has been very, very wrong on the election, on Trump and the treatment of Trump, and other things having to do with Trump and Republicans and conservatives. And they're doing us no favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors. That's the way life works. But, thank you for the question. Who are you with? Very good question. Thank you. Yes.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine. Well, we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. So many of the cities. They haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also. Ukraine is being just wiped out. Look at what's happening to the cities. There are cities, there's not even a building standing. It's a massive, you talk about Gaza. It's literally, these cities look like Gaza. Actually, many have, percentage-wise, more buildings knocked down than in Gaza. So, people are tired of it. People want to see something happen. And, the other thing that it's been bothering me for a long time, because I solved the problem with NATO. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars into the funds of NATO when I said, you got to pay, because the United States was paying for European countries, and then they take advantage of us on trade. But I've seen it. Look, they have to pay. They have to find out, where's the money going to? We have, I believe President Zelensky said last week that he doesn't know where half of the money is that we gave him. Well, we gave them, I believe, $350 billion, but let's say it's something less than that, but it's a lot. And we have to equalize with Europe, because Europe has given us given a very much smaller percentage than that. I think Europe has given 100 billion, and we've given, let's say, 300 plus. And it's more important for them than it is for us. We have an ocean in between, and they don't. But where is all the money that's been given? Where is it going? And I've never seen an accounting of it. We give hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't see any accounting. So I want to see peace. Look, you know why I want? Because I don't want all these people killed anymore. I'm looking at people that are being killed, and they're Russian and Ukrainian people, but they're people. Doesn't matter where they're from on the whole planet. And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started
Why
it. You
didn't
could
you
have
end
made
it
a deal.
3 years
I could have
ago?
made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for this. It was so bad, so pathetic, so sad. But with all of that being said, look, it is what it is. When I left, there was no chance that this could have happened, but it happened because we had incompetent leadership at many different levels. But when you see what's taking place in Ukraine with millions of people killed, including the soldiers, millions of people killed, a big percentage of their cities knocked down to the ground. I don't know how anybody even lives there. You know, when they say they took a poll and Zelensky's at 4%, who's living there? You know, I mean, it's hard to believe that people live there. Their cities are being knocked down. And this is something that would have never happened. And by the way, for 4 years, it didn't happen. It was never going to happen. Go ahead.
Follow-up question. How would you counter the perception, because Russia's pushing for this, obviously, they don't really hold true elections, that would be a capitulation of some sort. How would you guard against installing a puppet government? And then finally, how would that new election have an impact on getting Zelensky to sign the rare earth minerals deal?
Look, you have leadership, and I like him personally. He's fine. But I don't care about personally. I care about getting the job done. You have leadership now that's allowed a war to go on that should have never even happened, even without the United States. Look, we had a president who was grossly incompetent. He had no idea what he was doing. He said some very stupid things, like going in for portions and all of the things. He made a lot of bad statements, but he's grossly incompetent, and I think everyone knew that. This is something that should have never happened, would have never happened. And I used to discuss it with Putin. President Putin and I would talk about Ukraine. And it was the apple of his eye, I will tell you that. But there was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully. But I'm only interested. I want to see if I can save maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you could end up in World War III over something that should have never happened. And, you know, it's a very sad situation. Yeah, please.
Yeah. In a court filing, the White House said that Elon Musk is not a DOJ employee and has no authority to make decisions. Can you clarify for us today?
Well, Elon Musk.
That role is there.
Yeah. Elon is, to me, a patriot. So,
Yes,
you
you
could
are
call
on a
him an
MAGA
employee, you
channel.
could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want. But he's a patriot. I mean, look at the kind of things. I just said, just write it down, just in case that question got asked, right? And which I'm surprised it took so long, actually. But you know what? Ukraine's a bigger deal because people are dying by the thousands a week, thousands. But look at this, from 90 to 99, Social Security, 6,054,000 people. Well, that's okay. Maybe that's possible. 90 to 99, maybe it's possible. It's a lot of people, though, at that. But people that live to 100 to 109, 4,734,000. Wow, that's a lot. That means over 100 years old. They're 4 million people. I don't know too many. I know people that are doing great in their 90s, but not too many people over 100. But over 120, from 120 years old, people that are 120 years old up to 129, 3,472,000 people. Wow. That can't possibly be because the record is like, I think it's one person, a woman, lived to 127, but they have 3,472. Okay, but now we're going really in. People from 130 years old to 139 year old, 3,936,000. Wow. I wonder if people are getting paid with all this. I mean, are these checks? And that's what we're checking right now. People from 140 years old to 149 years old, 3,542,000. 140 years old and beyond. Now we're really going because we're looking to break the record by 25 years. People from 150 years old to 159 years old, 345,000. These are in the, by the way, these are in the computer files. This is what they do well. They're super. I asked Elon, who are these Doge people? Brilliant computer people, and they love the country. It's simple. Wait a minute. People from 160 years old to 169 years, 121,000. So 160-year-old people. 170 to 179,000, 6,087. But now, let's go into the real numbers. From 200 to 209 years old, 879 people. From 210 years old, I haven't met any of them. And if I did, I would bless them. I would worship the ground they walk on. 210 to 219 years, 866. From 220 years old to 229 years old, 1,039. And then you have two people. From 240 years old to 249 years old, one person. And there's one person that's 360 years old. That's just that. And then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance Investments in Africa, and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental study, but then, I paid like $50,000.
Same here. What's going on with that?
$520 million for ESG. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million going to Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. $40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. $42 million. What about us? What about social change in our country? $70 million for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that nobody ever heard about. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcisions.
What?
$10 million for circumcisions in another country. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. In other words, let's teach them something about enterprise. What about our people?
Exactly.
Can't we teach them about enterprise? $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. $32 million to the Prague Civil Society Center, which is a very liberal group of people. Wonder how much of that money came back to the people that approved it. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we?
I have to go to the bathroom. Do you want me to just play this video and leave it while I go to the bathroom? I also need to get dinner. Do you want me to do that? All right.
Block boxes.
I'll do that.
$20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. Listen to these numbers. This is all fraud. $19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal. $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence. In Liberia, $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in South Africa. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well. They're doing a lot better than we do in the schools, aren't they? $2 million to develop sustainable recycling models to increase socioeconomic cohesion among marginalized communities in Kosovo and Eskali and in Egypt. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. I could, by the way, I could read this all day long. I could go on all day long, and you'll see hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're doing it. But when I saw the Social Security numbers, I said, wow, that's really something. So we have, let's just go above 100 years old. We have millions and millions of people over 100 years old. Everybody knows that's not so. We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read is if you take all of those numbers off, because they're obviously fraudulent or incompetent, but if you take all of those millions of people off Social Security, all of a sudden we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200 years old. You know, so it's a very positive thing. How about over here? Yeah, please.
Your reaction to Michelle King, the head resigning after the DOJ?
Who resigned?
The head of Social Security.
I don't know. I mean, I resigned or got fired. I think got fired. You know, when you fire somebody, they always resign, and then they say, we resigned. But when you have numbers like that, I think really it's got fired. They have to get fired. Who would keep them? How could you have numbers like this? Now, the big thing is, how many of these people got paid? Were they getting paid? Were they getting paid? How many of them were getting paid Social Security? Because if that's the case, it's a massive fraud. We'll have to call those great Palm Beach police into this situation, right? You guys would figure that out very quickly. But how many of them are being paid? I mean, maybe millions of them, but it's a total fraud. Also, a lot of illegal immigrants are in Social Security that shouldn't be there. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, there was a big wave of probationary federal workers who were fired over the weekend. Some of these workers focused on nuclear weapon security were immediately rehired. Do you have any concerns about how these terminations have
No, not at all. I think we have to just do what we have to do. You know, you're going to, it's amazing what's been found right now. If we feel that in some cases they'll fire people and then they'll put some people back, not all of them, because a lot of people were let go. Don't forget, I got elected on the basis of making our government stronger and smaller, because we have millions of people that obviously they're paying millions of people that shouldn't be paid. And that has also to do with workers. Yeah, please. No, go ahead. Actually, yes, New Times.
Sorry. Mr. President, given your concerns about corruption, you said that if there were any conflicts of interest with Elon Musk, you wouldn't let him anywhere near it.
That's right.
Doge and SpaceX employees are now working directly at the Federal Aviation Administration and the Defense Department, agencies that have billions of dollars in contracts with Musk's companies or that directly regulate his companies. How is that not a conflict of interest?
Well, I mean, I'm just hearing about it, and if there is, and he told me before I told him, but obviously I will not let there be any conflict of interest. He's done an amazing job. They've revealed, in fact, he's going to be on tonight, a big show called Sean Hannity at 9 o'clock, and he's on and I'm on, and we talk about a lot of different things. And any conflicts, I told Elon, any conflicts, you can't have anything to do with that. So anything to do with possibly even space, we won't let Elon partake in that. Yeah, please.
On immigration, sir, you said you would be sending the worst of the worst to Guantanamo Bay. What we're finding out is that there are a lot of low-risk migrants who don't have a criminal background who are also being sent. Are you thinking about this differently now?
No, they're going to be brought back to their countries. And with some persuasion, every one of those countries, everyone in the, as you know, every country is taking the people back. So some of them are going to be brought back to, many of them, any of them that are low risk, as you say, are going to be brought back to their countries. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you give us a bit of an update on where you stand with Venezuela?
Yeah,
it's oil. There's basically a monthly license that can soon extend.
Well, you know, we had Venezuela on the run, and it looked like that was going to be very good. And when Biden came in, as he always does, he screws it up. And they started buying millions and millions and millions of dollars of oil, billions of dollars actually, of oil, and it gave them a new lease, a new really lease on life. But we'll see. We had some pretty good discussions with a lot of people within our government and the United States government that are involved in that. And Venezuela's a little bit early, but, you know, we were not buying from Venezuela when Biden came in for whatever reason. Instead of just taking the beautiful, as I call it, liquid gold, we have more than anybody. They started paying a fortune to Venezuela, and we're looking at that, actually. Why did they do that? Why were they doing that? Why would they go to the enemy and give them billions and billions of dollars? Now, with that being said, as you know, Venezuela has said very strongly they will not take any illegal immigrant, any of the people that they sent over to it.
You want to know what I'm having for dinner? Well, it's not my dinner, it's a snack. Well, it's not necessarily a snack. I love romaine lettuce, chickpeas, feta cheese, red peppers, cucumber, onion, and balsamic and olive oil dressing. And sometimes egg too, and cheese. It's really delicious. That's what I'm eating, if you want to know. All right, let's continue.
Sent their gangs, probably the worst gang anywhere in the world, as bad as MS-13, maybe worse. And they came out of the jails of Venezuela. They emptied their jails into our country. And they said, we'll never take them back. Well, they took them back, and they're taking them back. And they are taking them back rapidly. They were sending a lot of people to Venezuela. They said they wouldn't take them back, and they are taking back. But we're looking at Venezuela very seriously, and we're going to be able to. Don't forget, I've only been here for 3 weeks. Yeah, please.
Just a little clarity on, are you inclined to continue to allow Venezuela, through, I think, Chevron and other oil companies, to export those petroleum products, or are you
maybe not
to pull back?
Yeah, maybe not. We're looking at that now. I just got here. When I left, they weren't doing anything. They were ready to go. We give up. And then Biden came along and he gave them literally billions of dollars. I couldn't believe it, actually. And we have so much
great idea
under our feet. Liquid gold. We have so much, and it was pretty amazing. So we're looking at that whole situation, why he did it. All right, how about one more? Yeah, please.
Mr. President, what can you tell us about the CIA drone flights over Mexico? Is this the next step in the war against the cartels?
Well, we're going to see.
Should they have authority to take lethal action?
Mexico's allowed a tremendous number of people to go through their country into ours, and even people coming from Mexico, and illegals, totally illegal. They've allowed people to empty jails into Mexico and then let them come through with this totally ridiculous open border policy of the Biden administration. So millions of people have come in, and hundreds of thousands, and actually millions, are criminals. They came in from jails all over the world that released them into Mexico, and they come into our country. And they also came in from Canada, by the way, large numbers through Canada. In fact, when we closed up the one border, they came in through the other border. So Canada is not an uninterested party. But I will say this, we're dealing with Mexico. I have a very good relationship with Mexico, but I think Mexico is largely run by the cartels, and that's a sad thing to say. And if they wanted help with that, we'd give them help. But Mexico, if you look at what's gone on with Mexico for years now, but now especially, it's run by the cartels. And they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from jails and prisons of other countries from all over the world, not just South America, Africa, Asia, all over. A lot from the Congo in Africa, a lot. They opened their jails. They came in through Mexico, And we have some of the worst criminals coming in from the Congo and other places. So it's not just South America, and it's not just Venezuela, but they open their jails. And you know, the crime rates in Venezuela and other places all over the world has gone way down. You know why? Because they've given us their prisoners, they've given us their drug lords and their gang members. And it's hard to believe that we accepted this. It's hard to believe that we allowed open borders, and we're taking in, you know, hundreds of thousands and millions of people coming in from all over the world that are absolute stone-cold criminals. In fact, 11,088 murderers, and many of those people have murdered more than one person. Why are they giving us these people, and why are we taking these people under Biden? You know, you had a border czar that never went to the border. Happened to be a vice president, never went to the border, never called the border people. I call them all the time. I speak to them all the time. But here's the good news. We have the most secure border we've ever had right now. As secure and even more secure than I had it 4 years ago. And the Border Patrol is doing incredible. ICE is doing incredible. Tom Homan's unbelievable, and Kristi Noem has been just working very, very hard. Very, very hard. And we have the best numbers we've ever had, and we're going to keep it that way. And we're going to find out how a thing like this could have happened to our country, because who would allow this to happen? What they've done to our country is so sad. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
President Trump making his remarks at Mar.
That's a wrap for our live stream. We've been here for almost 2 hours. Thank you so much for watching, you all. We'll be live very soon. That's Trump and his press conference. So we'll be live. We'll debunk that whole thing and talk about it and debrief on it. But thank you guys for watching this live. I appreciate you, and have a really great day. Bye.